Welcome all again. I would like to welcome Monica Valase, our 10th semester student. I've been teaching her from the third semester, and she's been a student who has always wanted to do something different, something really tough, something which challenges her. And this time she's taken up a project which is has been a real challenge and is still a challenge for Bangalore. And she has got some wonderful project proposals for a project, EcoSpace installation for Institute for Waste Management Studies and Research. Monica, please come up with your explanation of this proposal. Over to you, Monica.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, all. My name is Monica Valse. As an aspiring architect, I believe in architecture as something that evokes the senses and creates an experience in itself. I've always been intrigued by the process of creativity, innovation of ideas, and learning. My project, EcoSpace, stands as an example for an architectural intervention in terms of sustainable use of resources for the betterment of our society. So I will be sharing my project with all of you. I hope you enjoy. Okay, so I'm going to be presenting my thesis topic today. It's called EcoSpace, and it's an Institute for Waste Management Studies and Research. So, as an introduction to the project, I would tell you this project mainly deals with the idea of environmentalism. So that is how best we can make use of our resources and minimize the amount of waste that is generated. Because we have a huge population, and in the future, it's only going to increase. So this means a lot of people requiring a lot of resources, and more food. And in the end, we are going to have a lot of waste that is generated through this huge population. So how are we going to deal with that waste? And now with this pandemic coming about, the amount of waste has increased by threefold because of a lot of new materials that are being used, from PPEs to masks and gloves and so many new things. And all of these technically should be recyclable, but a lot of them are not recyclable. So what do we do with the waste that is generated? Because as of now, we have very insufficient ways of dealing with the end products of such things. So talking about the importance of the project, there's this statement which says, when waste is managed at source, it becomes a resource. This is said by Wilma Rodrigues, who's the founder of Sahas Zero Waste. Now, this is a very important statement, and it has been the driving force behind this project, where the main aim has been to, make the best use of resources and to minimize the amount of waste that is generated, and as far as possible, use all the resources on site, and even the waste that is generated, handle it on site. So here are some interesting facts. India alone produces about 62 million tons of waste. Can you even imagine the scale? It's huge. And this amount of waste is only going to increase to, by 100 times in the next 10 years, that is by 2030. So, before we reach such, such benchmarks, like we need to have a system that's in place that is able to handle this huge amount of waste. Because as of now, nearly 70% of the urban waste is going into landfills. Now, a lot of this waste doesn't have to reach the landfills because it can be recycled, energy can be generated, it can be reused. There are so many different ways of handling it. Um, so the aim of this project is I've adopted a holistic approach. It mainly consists of 3 points, that is educate, enculturate, and eradicate. So this is a holistic approach to to handle waste management. Now this translates into the design program of education, awareness, and technology. Now how do we achieve education, awareness, and technology? So the design approach has been to incorporate it in three separate ways, that is promoting decentralized units, amalgamation of various activities, and energy generation. Promoting decentralized units, as I already said, when waste is handled at source, it becomes a resource. So when this decentralized units are promoted, waste can be handled as close to the source as possible. In this way, a lot of energy has been saved. The energy in transporting waste, the energy in collecting and segregating waste, all of that has been cut short because the distance that waste has to travel has been cut short, and it's as close to the source as possible. Then coming to the amalgamation of various facilities. As of now, how we look at waste management system is they are basically storage spaces, or they are, these dark spaces where nothing much happens. It's just that waste is brought in, it's dumped in one place and then it's going to the landfill. So what happens when we incorporate different activities along with it? Like maybe markets or educational spaces or exhibition spaces where a lot of different users come into the same space, then the productivity of that space as a whole is increased because there are various activities. It's no more monotonous, so this space becomes more generative. And energy generation is a very important aspect because we require a lot of energy, and from waste itself a lot of energy can be generated. So that has been an important aspect, and we always talk about sustainable cities and sustainable neighborhoods. I think this is a step towards in that direction. um, this is a study. It's called Unblackboxing an Architectural Agenda for Waste. So this is basically for design for behavioral change, because as citizens, our civic sense is not really up to the mark, I must say, because that is because we are not very aware. Though we have a lot of resources, we are not very aware how to use it. So it's very important to create awareness. There are many drives for different kinds of people, all the way from the people who work with the waste, like for collecting waste, segregating waste, all of that, and also to the citizens, because the least we can do is segregating waste, because the whole system is benefited by that. So these are all awareness programs. So here we do not look at waste as the end product, but we look at it as a resource for something new. And these are the two case studies that I've done. One is a literature study and one is the case study. And then we go on to the process of site selection. So for the process of site selection, I started with the whole of India and studied the major metropolitan cities. So after this, I came to the conclusion that the top 5 metropolitan cities, that's Delhi, Mumbai, Calcutta, Bangalore, and Hyderabad, are the highest producers of waste. Among this, Kolkata, Delhi, and Mumbai is the highest. They are the top 3. And then comes Bangalore and Hyderabad. Now, the top 3, because the amount of waste generated is so tremendously huge, they already have some measures taken to handle this huge amount of waste. Either they are waste to energy plants, or there are like large scale recycling units. But when it comes to Bangalore and Hyderabad, not much has been done. And when we talk only of Bangalore and Hyderabad, Bangalore comes first because the amount of waste generated is comparatively more compared to Hyderabad. And that's why I've selected more Bangalore, because I think immediately there's a need for one such project. And once Bangalore was selected, then we think about which part of Bangalore. So the map of Bangalore has been divided into 4 quadrants. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And each of these quadrants have been studied separately. So these red dots that you see are the existing facilities. They are either landfills or they are facilities where waste is recycled. And the ones in yellow are the proposed ones that are proposed by the BBMP. Now, what has happened is, after I studied each of these quadrants, I came to the conclusion that the southern part of Bangalore, that is quadrant 3 and 4, they have sufficient facilities existing as well as the proposed one. But the northern portion of Bangalore, it does not have a lot of facilities at present, and also it's not been proposed. And yeah, so my main aim was the northern portion of Bangalore. So what I've done is selected 3 different sites from the northern portion of Bangalore. It's mostly in Elanka and Ramagondanahalli. So these are the 3 selected sites. Now the first 2 sites are located mainly in residential areas. Now that would be now it is fine, but then in the proposed land use map, the entire portion is residential. So it is not very feasible to have such a facility in a completely residential area, because as of now we do have some facilities like in Kudlu and Keensandra, which are located in residential areas, and it has been a huge problem to the residents over there because of the huge trucks coming in, large amount of waste being bought in. So there's a lot of protest happening. So it would not be very feasible to have it in a completely residential area. So then I zeroed it on to the third site. This is secluded from the residential area, but is also in close proximity. So the waste would have to travel about 3 to 5 kilometers. But now currently, uh, uh, waste travels nearly kilometers, so that has been reduced. So this site has been selected so that the surroundings are do not get affected by one such facility. And then the four main points for this site to be selected are the location, surrounding, accessibility, and proposals. Now, the location, it's located in the northern portion of Bangalore, as I already said. And why the northern portion? Because this northern portion has a lot of proposals that's coming up. One is the international airport being, extended. The second one is the Devanalli International Park that's going to come up, the IT park. And then also the peripheral ring road. Now, with all these developments happening, a lot of the urban population is going to move into those areas. Though it is not very densely populated as of now, in the coming future, it is going to be. So that is one reason. And the surroundings, as I already said, the surroundings are not entirely residential. It is mainly agriculture or public utility, and there's the peripheral road coming into picture. So yeah, the site was selected because of these reasons. And you see a small model over here in the corner. This the one in orange is the site. The light green portions are the agricultural lands, and the dark green is the forest land. And and you see small pockets of settlements around, because this area is not entirely developed as of now. But with the peripheral road coming into picture, then there's going to be a huge population that will move into these areas. Then coming to the concept, it's divided into three different parts. That is the site level strategies, the building level strategies, and the vertical storyline. So the site level strategies, we start with massing. Now the entire mass of the site has been divided into three chunks. The three chunks, and the largest portion has gone to the institution block. Then the smaller portion that you see in dark brown is to the east of the site, and that is the residential quarters, that is the hostel blocks. And the light brown that you see is towards the west, and that is where the waste to energy facility is going to be located. Coming to the axis, there are two main axes. The red one is the major axis, and the small yellow ones are the minor axes. And at the intersection of these two axes, different activity nodes have been located. Coming to hierarchy, the red circles that you see are the major activities, from which they go on to the minor activities, which are the orange circles. And this green is the common space. So the access to all the major activities is through this green common space. And then coming to the built form, the built form is an amalgamation of different volumes, and be it spatially or vertically. So it's an amalgamation of volumes with small pockets of spaces for natural ventilation and lighting. And then comes movement. Now the red one is the vehicular movement, and the yellow lines indicate the pedestrian movement. So the vehicular movement has been restricted to about 20%. So it is only in the periphery of the site, and the remaining portion of the site, about 80%, is entirely pedestrian movement. Coming to the building level strategies, I've divided into three aspects, that is function, climatology, and volume. Now function, as I already spoke in massing, three different masses have been divided. So that is the residential units, the institution block, and the waste to energy facility. So this has a very linear arrangement. So when we have a linear arrangement, we have these long corridors. So they are very monotonous spaces. These linear arrangements have been scattered. So you see that in the next portion, that is under climatology. So these have been scattered and clustered in such a way that we have these small pockets for green pockets and water bodies. So this is basically to improve the microclimate of the site, so that there is more interaction with the outside. There is easy movement of air and ventilation and lighting. So that's the reason for this scattered arrangement. And once a scattered arrangement has been done at the ground level, then comes the volume. So different volumes have been given to each space depending on the functionality of the space. So as an end product, we get this amalgamation of different volumes, and with these small pockets at different levels. So that has been the reason for the form generation. Then comes the vertical storyline. The first one is zoning. So under zoning, all the spaces which are extroverted, which have more interaction with the outside. So all of those spaces are majorly located on the northern and eastern portion. And the southern and western portion has a lot of introverted spaces like labs or circulation spaces, circulation cores, because very less amount of time is spent in these spaces, because they are generally warmer compared to the northern side. So these circulation spaces have been given on the southern side. And the second one over here that you see is the circulation cores that I have shown. the vertical circulation course. And the last one is the different features, that is the green pocket, the interactive facades, that is, kinetic facade, and the blue ones are the glazing. So all the blue lines that you see here are generally to the northern side to bring in the north light, because it's not very harsh. And then all the southern and western facades have been given with kinetic facades to, alter the amount of sunlight that's coming in throughout the day. And this is the master plan. So this is entirely 11.6 acres of land, and this is the main access road. That is the main peripheral ring road, which is a 8-lane peripheral ring road. And we have two roads. This is the main peripheral ring road, and another road, the secondary road going behind, that is the Mavalipura main road. Then we have, coming to the access points, we have 3 main access points along the peripheral ring road. So the first two that you see here, this is the public entry and the institution entry. So these two are located over here with separate entrance for the pedestrian movement and separate entrance for the vehicular movement. And this access point that you see over here, this is for the residential entry that goes to the hostel blocks. So that has been separated from the main institution block, so that you can manage the crowd that's coming into these spaces. And then there's a service entry to the back portion of the site in the rear portion. This is mainly for the vehicles coming in, the waste tipping vehicles, and also for the service entry of the canteen and the auditorium. This is the internal road network. As you see, the road network is towards the periphery of the site. The main access road, this is about 12 meters driveway with separate tracks for cycling and a separate footpath. And what you see here in orange, this is the bus bay. This is provided at the entrance, so that this is the place where the students are picked up and dropped off. And from this bus bay, there is direct access to the institution block. There's a pedestrian walkway. And then there are 2 parking lots, one at the entrance from the peripheral ring road. This is mainly for the public who are coming in. And there's one behind, that is for the staff who works in the waste to energy facility. And for the student and teachers, the parking is given at the basement. Then comes the pedestrian movement. So this pedestrian movement, there is a continuous spine all the way from the entrance to all the blocks. And all of these pedestrian movement, plazas are given mostly to the northern side, so that the shadows from the buildings, which are on the southern side of these pathways, are casted on the shadows are casted. So it's mostly shaded throughout the day. So this portion in the beginning, this is the public plaza, public walkthrough, and this in between the 2 buildings, this is the student plaza. And coming to the build form, I have like 6 main build forms. That is the institution block that you see here, and then the library block, the canteen, eco-learning space, waste to energy facility, that is to the western portion of the site, and the residential quarters, that is the hostel blocks on the eastern portion of the site. This is the landscape layer. I will speak of this in the next slide. Yeah, so these are the sub-layers of master plan. I've detailed out the circulation layer and the landscape layer, and these are different sections along different roads. So the first section that you see over here is the main road. So it is the main driveway that you see, which is marked in gray. Then comes the cycling track, which is marked in red. And then comes the footpath. And then there's space for vegetation. So this is through the section through main road. The second one is the section through the bus bays. You see the bus bays on either sides. And then it's the section through the pedestrian walkway. And the fourth one is the section through the parking lot. So yeah, so this is the section through the parking lot, and this is the material palette. All the color codes that I've given in this section, the material it represents has been given over here, and the reasons why it has been used and the specification. Mostly all the materials that have been used are either naturally available materials or materials that have been recycled, like plastic tiles and plastic pavers for the cycling tracks and the footpaths. Then coming to the landscape layer, we have the OAT. So this OAT has been designed in such a way that this stone available on site has been used. So it's like making use of whatever is resources available on site. So this OAT is made in such a way, and this OAT is located over here. I hope you can see it in the key plan, and it's oriented in the north-south direction to reduce the amount of glare that's falling, so that it doesn't disturb the the viewers and also the person who's participating or presenting. And next is the bioswale. This section is across the parking lot. So this bioswale comes in between the two parking, where the cars have been parked in this picture. So this entire parking lot has been given a certain slope so that all the water from there goes into the bioswale and then it's circulated into the ground. And then comes the eco pond. Now, this eco pond, it's the one located over here. It's marked number 3. Okay, so this is the ground floor plan, and here we basically have this is the institution block, and here we have the main entrance, and this is the reception and waiting area, and this entire portion is the um, admin area, and this is the main circulation core. This is the library block, the canteen, and the eco-learning space. So through this section, you can see, which is cut across the circulation core, you can see the different volumes and the connecting bridge between the two blocks, which is on the second floor level. This is the first floor, which has all the seminar halls and some workshops. So as you see in the section, there are different volumes, that are placed one above the other, and there is this huge chunk of volume that is subtracted from the form. This is to create, a terrace at the second floor level. And this that you see over here, the green panels on both the institution block and the library block, these are algae panels. So algae panels are like bioreactors. They are efficient in energy generation. So the entire southern portion has these panels, and these are the different modules at different timings and how the panels work. And that is one elevation showing the the panels on the southern facade. This is the second floor. Here you see different labs and the connection between the two blocks through the bridge. And I'm also talking about this green wall over here that you see in this elevation. Hello. Hello.
Yes, Monica, continue.
Okay. So this green wall detail, here you see two different kinds of vegetation has been used, the green portion and the red portion. This is mainly the bird's nest fern and the philodendrons that are used, because these are very efficient at absorbing carbon dioxide. So in the in the lead book, there is one separate section given to this portion, because these walls are very efficient in acting as carbon sponges and also as noise absorbers. And then coming to the third floor, here we have all the scientist cabins and some classrooms. And here you see this green terrace. So this is accessible from the second floor. And yeah, this is the detail of the green roof that you see. And these are generally provided as, hangout spaces at different levels. This is the fourth floor. It's the same as the first floor. And this is the basement floor. Here, I'd like to talk about the auditorium. This auditorium has been slightly submerged from the main ground level. So it's about 2 meters low. The reason for doing this is because after a certain point, the temperature of the earth is nearly constant. So when this portion of the building is submerged below the ground surface, the internal temperature is nearly the same. So the load on cooling is considerably reduced. So these are the different, forms of energy that is generated through solar pavers, algae panels, and through solar panels, and the rainwater harvesting. The amount of water that is harvested, it is nearly equivalent to 80,000, 8 lakh liters. So then coming to the waste to energy facility, we are talking about the decentralized module, as I already spoke about in the introduction. So this is the existing and the proposed, the existing, what is happening is all the waste that we generate is nearly going to the landfill. So there are a lot of waste going to the landfills because we are not making the best use of it. So as a proposal, I'd like to talk of inverting this pyramid where least amount is going to the landfill. This starts by segregating our waste so that each waste is, treated as per its, however it can be used best. And this is the module of speaking of why waste to energy, because yes, again, energy can be generated through waste in different forms of heat and electricity and all of that. So these are some plans showing the waste to energy module. So at the ground floor level is where the waste is brought in, and there are some tipping areas for recyclable waste and non-recyclable waste. And it has some office spaces and cafeteria for the staff. And then on the first floor, there's again office spaces. And the third floor is basically for the public walkthrough that is connected from the eco-learning space. So people can actually come and have a look what is happening. So yeah, so why do we need this waste to energy facility at different levels, at micro, meso, and macro level? So at my micro level, that is at a neighborhood level, considering about 10,000 people, and the waste generated is around 5,000 kg. So how much energy this can produce is nearly 3,000 kilowatts of energy. So when we look at community level, nearly 3 lakh kilowatts of energy can be produced, and at a city level, nearly 30 lakh kilowatts of energy can be generated. So this is, just showing how much energy can be generated by incorporating this module in our system. So as a concluding note, I'd like to say, considering the present context and the coming future, the need to consider waste as a resource is of great importance. Our vision as a community should be directed towards sustainable environmental practices where there is sensible use of resources, minimization of waste produced, and energy generation. In order to achieve such goals, the education, awareness, and research aspect of such an important project has to be made more concrete and accessible. Hence, the role of the designer in this project is to promote an amalgamation of all these aspects so that the campus stands as an example for what it speaks. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Monica.
Thank you,
Yeah.
ma'am.
So I would like students to ask only 2 questions. Yeah, anyone?
Thank you, Monica. It was a good
Thank you, ma'am.
presentation.
Thank you, ma'am.
You have a lot of practically workable ideas which can be implemented all over Bangalore with the help of prototype that you have proposed.
Yes, ma'am.
Hoping to see waste-free, cleaner, greener Bangalore with your interventions.
Yes,
All the
thank
very
you.
best.
Yeah,
Thank
Monica.
you, ma'am.
Thank you. It was really thoughtful and very meaningful presentation. I should thank Rupa ma'am also. I think she's your
Yes,
guide.
ma'am.
Yeah, thank you,
Yeah,
Rupa.
yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Monica, thank you. And we'll
Thank
move
you,
on
ma'am.
to the next one.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you, Monica.
That was indeed a very good presentation, Monica. Thank you so much. Now, can you please share your experiences on NCSEM? How did you find it a very good exploring way for yourself to present your things here?
Okay, firstly, I'd like to thank the management and the faculties for arranging such a platform in these testing times. It's really hard to conduct one such event on an online platform. So thank you all of you for putting in so much effort. And this has been a great platform because I've got a huger audience to share my work with. All these days, it used to be a small circle of only our architecture batchmates, but now with a lot of people, this has been a very interactive session and very helpful for me to, upgrade my skills and knowledge. Thank you all.
Thank you, Monica.
Yeah, thank you, Monica. That was indeed a very well thought and very well worked out presentation. I can see a lot of hard work and efforts which has gone through it. So thank you
Thank you, ma'am.
once again and keep it up.
Thank you, ma'am.